Welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining. So tonight we are learning Leilui Lishmat Avram ben Chaim Yehuda and Yechaskel ben Avraham. So this is partially a continuation from last week. So just to give not even a full recap, like a very, very brief recap of what was spoken of last week, was we were speaking about self-judgment is really what we focused on. Now the goal or better yet the intent of what we wanted to speak about was really the judgment of judges judging. And in order for, I guess I'll explain it the same way I explained it last time. We tend to not participate, listen, or care if something we don't feel is something so applicable to us, which is a problem because sometimes you need to hear something, but you kind of zone out, or you're not interested in the class topic, so you don't click on it, or you're not interested in the sefer or book and you don't read it, or this article, and it's really beneficial for you, but we feel like, okay, it doesn't really talk to us. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes if you're in a in a finance business and you see a health article that has no relation to your personal health, why would you read it? But when it comes to Torah, there is nothing that we could say that it's not something that we need or something that we need to learn and something we need to hear. So the problem arises is when we come across a topic or a situation where we feel like we don't really need it, so we tend to tune out, and it's very unfortunate because the whole space out game is we kind of miss out on a lot of things in life during this hiatus that we kind of take on ourselves. So to try to avoid that, we started off speaking about personal judgment. And what I mean by personal judgment is the judgments that we constantly make as people. Like, we don't have to be a judge, just generalizing any single person is on a constant basis is judging constantly, and in fact many times continuously throughout the day, whether it's themselves, whether it's they judging others. So the reason why we started with that is that, I do that. I judge myself. I look at others. I, have thoughts about others. So then, let me pay attention to it. But really what we were trying to get to is when you judge others, and the reason why it's related is because judgment is judgment. And whether it's to judging ourselves or whether it's judging other people, there are very, very important implications, which again, we're not going to be speaking about all of them, but one focus we will be speaking about that, and that's what the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot speaks about, having misunim badin, be deliberate in judgment, or better yet, be more patient in your judgment. So now, with that being said, when sometimes you have a scenario or a case, or let's say even if it's a judge where they have seen a case and they've come to a conclusion, or you have come to a conclusion in this case. Let's say Reuven owes Shimon money, and you're the judge and you hear the entire scenario, and you come to the conclusion that yes, Reuven owes Shimon money. You've done this case 100 times, you're aware of this situation, and you do that. But then what happens if you miss or find out one small detail? Sometimes that one small detail would show that really Reuven doesn't owe Shimon money, but really Shimon owes Reuven money. And meaning that even if you're used to a subject, and even if you're used to the scenario, there are many times where one small detail of that scenario changes the entire verdict of the entire thing. Now, keep this in mind. Even if we're speaking about judges, this is also with your own personal judgment that you make on yourself, a judgment you make on other people. And just to give you an example of such a scenario, where we can judge ourselves, and we can say, we had a bad day, we had a good day, depending on your, on how you judge yourself, whether it's for the good, whether for the bad, which is both is appropriate. But you could think of yourself as having a terrible day, and you're judging yourself from your own, lenses. But let's say somebody else looks at you and be like, wow, look at this person. This person didn't have a good sleep last night. This person is sick. This person is, and the list goes on and on. And even that, they were still able to pray. They were still able to go out. They they were able to work. And in another person's eye, it could be like such a successful day. And in your eyes, it'll be like such a failed day. So what was the difference? Maybe you were sick. Maybe you weren't, fully, whatever. You didn't sleep enough. You had, a bad, interaction with a employee or employer. Whatever it is that just like threw you off your game. And we sometimes come to the conclusion that it was a failed job. It was a failed day. It was a failed situation where many times maybe it is a really successful job, a really successful, day. And the flip side, some days you could come and be like, wow, that was an amazing successful day. And really it was a pretty bad failure. You had so much going for you. You could have accomplished so much more and you only accomplished so much. So meaning that we come to certain conclusions, but sometimes we miss a detail, whether it's consciously, unconsciously, on purpose, not on purpose, and that changes the entire scenario. So when someone is judging a case, when a judge is judging a case, there's so many times that one detail can change the verdict to this guy being guilty and this guy being innocent. And this, by the way, goes to anybody who asks a rabbi a halacha question. Sometimes you ask a question, and the rabbi is familiar. Most questions that people ask is generally repeat questions. Most of the questions are not the original questions. So the rabbi has already, but within the first few sentences, the rabbi already knows where it's going, and the rabbi already has an answer in his head. However, sometimes there's one detail that changes the entire answer. And I can tell you that, personally, when I've spoken to people and, they've started the conversation, I know where it's going and I know where the answer is going to be. And then they throw in a detail that they would think it was insignificant, where it turned out that my answer would have been it's a 180-degree turn. It's a full, complete different outcome to what you said, because it was an insignificant detail to you, and you kind of mentioned it. And sometimes people don't mention, and that's why people have to start digging. Rabbis, judges, whatever it is, if someone you're asking advice, they start digging in to try to get a little bit more details, because sometimes what you think is insignificant can be a really significant detail. So what we're trying to bring out over here is that we can come to a conclusion that we think is really right, but it's really so wrong because we missed a particular detail. Now, this is what the Mishnah is telling us, telling the judges and ourselves, and each and every single one of us, that when we judge, whether it's ourselves or somebody else, if you're missing just one part of that detail, of that scenario, of that person's life, you could come to such a wrong conclusion. You could look at a person and say that person is a bad person because they did X, Y, and Z. But you don't know that if they would have given you one other detail, it would have changed the thing completely. And I don't want to give too much of cases, but let's say, for example, a little bit of a broader case, that's so we don't get too particular, where I with a group of other people were dealing with a particular person. And this person was not an easy person to deal with, was causing a lot of issues. And I've noticed that people were getting a little bit antsy on this person. And I didn't mention, because I wasn't 100% sure. Later I found out to be true. I was speaking to not all of them, but a bunch of them. And I said, why are we getting so upset with this person? We don't know what's going on. Maybe this person has a background or a history. Let's just leave it as a very, very difficult history. And, the people were like, okay, fine, maybe you're right. And then they started thinking about it, and I started painting the picture. They were like, you know what, in that case, it's not so bad. Later, it turned out that everything that I was saying as a probability turned out to be an actuality. It actually was, one of the reasons. So, meaning that you look at a person, you're dealing with a person, the person's a difficult person, the person's an annoying person, the person's hard to deal with, and then you find out certain scenarios, and you'll be like, you know what? I don't blame this person. This person is not like being the situation that he or she was put in. How can I blame it? So this is how important it is to be deliberate in our judgment, because we never know. We never know where one detail can change the entire outcome of the verdict. Whether it's in our own personal minds, whether it's something that we're judging other people as a legal system, it doesn't matter. All we have to know that if we're missing something, it could change the entire verdict. And this is why the Mishnah is telling us, be very meticulous, be very, very meticulous. The Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 7b, tells us that a judge should not, or is not allowed, to listen to the argument of one side when the other side is not present. So one of the reasons behind it is that, let's say you hear I don't know if anybody here, I'm sure most of you have dealt with a situation where there was some sort of disagreement and you heard at least one side of that disagreement. So once you hear one side of that disagreement, that all of a sudden starts festering, and kind of growing in your mind, and it sort of metamorphoses into a conclusion that you make. Now, of course, we know that whenever we are dealing with a argument or a disagreement, there's always three sides of the story. There is one side and the other side, and then the actual side, right? Because everybody sees things from their own perspective, from their own lenses, from their own mindset, and one person will try to explain the scenario and honestly and truthfully as possible, and you'll come to a conclusion where, let's say, conclusion A. Then you listen to the exact scenario from the lens of person B, and now you're going to come to a conclusion B, which is not the same as your first conclusion. Which really, if the scenario, it presents itself to you, you should come with the same conclusion whichever angle you see it. Math is math, right? 1 + 1, whichever angle you're going at, backwards or forwards, it's going to be the same number. So the same thing when we come to a verdict, it should be from every angle. But once you start hearing something, it starts growing inside you and you come to your own conclusion. If someone's a sweet talker, if someone's able to present things in a nice way, if someone's able to manipulate things a little bit, politicians, they know how to argue, they know how to debate, they know how to switch things around, they know how to word certain things that will make you side with them, even though they might not be the better candidate for the job, but they know how to say the right things at the right time. So when a judge is sitting over here, when you're sitting in a scenario and you're looking at two options and you're trying to figure it out, if you start listening to one option way before the other one, or not at the same time the other one, it will start growing inside of you, and you'll start to get to some sort of bias. So the Gemara tells us that we have, if a judge is sitting and judging a case, they have to go and they have to listen to both arguments at the same time. Rav Pam takes us a step further, and this Mishnah says that the reason why many people make mistakes in, let's say, halachically, or whatever it is and they're doing, and especially in their judgment, is because they lack something called sablanas. Sablanas is patience. They lack patience. And unfortunately, Rav Pam goes on and says that they fail to realize that one of the main qualifications of a rabbi, a posek, a leader, and this goes to any aspect of leadership. Every single person here is a leader in one way or another in their own life. One of the most important or main qualifications of a leader is patience. The need for patience, we could see it in raising kids, in work, in relationships. There's always these aspects of a leadership role that you take in one form or another, and patience is of vital importance. Even patience before you speak, even if you're not a leader, just patience before you speak. The Pele Yoetz brings quotes, the Sefer Hasidim, and says something so interesting. They should make this into like a bumper sticker. Until you speak, speech is your prisoner. After you speak, you are its prisoner. Meaning that let me repeat that because it's just such a good line. Until you speak, speech is your prisoner. After you speak, you are its prisoner. Meaning that before you start talking, you control what you're going to say. Once you said it already, once it's out there, that's it. Now you're a prisoner to that. And now you have to just kind of either justify, apologize, try to prove your point. You have to go through. It's out there. Now you have to figure out how I'm going to deal with that. Now you're the prisoner as opposed to the prisoner, meaning that how careful we have to be before we say something. How careful we have to be how much important it is to have patience before you speak. The idea of patience applies on every level of education, every level of learning. We are constantly, we should be, on a learning or a growth-oriented, whether it's through our jobs or whether it's through our personal relationships, whether it's through our knowledge of the Torah, which will always be, obviously, whether it's our self-improvement. We have so many different areas of learning that we're doing it. Patience is of one of the utmost importance for that. So let's say, for example, a rabbi, a parent, they recognize something wrong with one of their students or one of their children. So they go and they deliver, they prepare a speech that they're going to give the child or the class. And they prepare this amazing, amazing, passionate speech that they figure after this, that's it, everybody's changing their life. Everybody's going to change their life for the better. And they give this whole speech, and everything is excellent. Amazing delivery. The people there were very accepting of it. They internalized it. The speaker saw that he hit the heart. And then this speaker, the rabbi, the parent, they see that the people, like the next day, they're doing the same exact thing. They haven't really changed. And the answer is where you might think that you failed in your, attempt to change people. And the answer is no, not really. You're not necessarily failing. You have to be patient. Most things in life are in incremental changes. Very, very small, minor improvements is where they happen. Hearing a speech or two does not usually change a person's life. And this is especially important for Kiruv. Like people in the Kiruv world need to realize that you're going to try to convince somebody to keep Shabbos and it doesn't work, so you think that you failed. And it's the furthest from the truth. Every little thing that you discuss, that you speak, that you try to, impress on, that you try to motivate people, and it doesn't work right away, it doesn't mean that you failed. You planted something inside. And slowly that thing grows, and hopefully it will keep on getting nurtured by more lectures, more comments, more improvements, and then the change will come. There are so many people that I speak to, especially if they're trying to be Makarev, they're trying to bring someone closer to Judaism, or maybe they're trying to bring someone closer, to therapy. And they're like, this person is so adamant, they're never going to change. And what is the point of even speaking to them? What is the point of even trying? And I always try to convince them, no, it's never, always try. You don't know the effect that you have. Even if somebody looks like they've given up, even if it appears that your words have absolutely no effect to them, you have no idea the effect that's brewing inside. And it might be right. It might be the thing that you said that day, or the speech, or the thing that they listened to has very little effect to them. But over time, the more that they hear about it, the more that they see this, the more that they grow from this, that will eventually produce a change. So meaning that in anything in education, in growth-oriented, in change, patience is of utmost importance, and you need the patience. And there are many people, and this is also very true, by the way, in people that have sales jobs. People that have sales jobs, if they don't have the patience, there's obviously other qualifications that is needed, but if they don't have the patience they don't last in it. And that's why you see a lot of people, they go to different jobs and they don't last. They last, maybe a month or two, and then and then they bounce, and then they leave. And some of the reasons are it's not meant for them, and they realized it, and that's rightfully so that they left. But other times they were like, okay, wait a minute, I've tried this, business opportunity. It didn't work. I tried it for like a few weeks or a few months even. It didn't work, and let me try something else. And then sometimes it's just a lack of patience, instant gratification. We want something so quickly. There is a Gemara that relates a story with Rav Preda. Rav Preda had a certain student, and there's like so many lessons you could learn from this story. It's crazy. Rav Preda had a certain student that he would have to teach over and over again until the student would be able to comprehend, to understand what the rabbi was speaking. Now, before I tell you the amount of times, just try to picture yourself. Like, imagine you have to present some sort of information, even if you're not a teacher, you're not a rabbi, you're not whatever. You just have to present. You have to train somebody on something, whatever it is. It could be something you're good at, something you're not good at. You just have to train someone on it. How many times are you going to go until you're like, you know what? It's not working. I'm sorry. I it's not you, it's me. Whatever it is that you're going to be saying, and you just stop it. Let's say you try to train someone and you try 10 times. That's like a very high number, right? Like after like 3-4 times, if someone doesn't get something, you start saying, okay, you know what, maybe somebody else is more equipped to deal with this than me. But imagine you do it 10 times. And then you go to your boss or whatever it is that you're saying, listen, I taught this, I tried teaching this person this task 10 times. They couldn't get it. I don't know if they're right for the job. I don't know if I'm right for the job. Maybe you should find somebody else. And the boss will be like, wow, 10 times? That's a lot of times. And you start thinking, you say, you know what? Let me give it another shot. And you go and you spend more additional hours, and you do another 10 times. So you came for a total of 20 times that you tried to train somebody on something, and it was not successful. At this point, you're like, would anybody expect you to even try more? It'll be like, no, you're wasting your time. Why would you 20 times? You know how much 20 times is to teach someone the same thing? Rav Preida had a certain student, listen to this, that he would have to teach 400 times. Not like one thing. Everything that he taught the student, 400 times. And he didn't give up. He taught the student 400 times the lesson. One day, he's middle of teaching the student, I don't know what number he was up to, but he was teaching into the 400 times. And they requested from Rav Preida, there was a certain mitzvah matter situation that they needed the rabbi's presence after the lesson. And Rav Preida said, fine, let me free, he was dealing with this boy, he was teaching this boy, 400 times. And he says, after I finish this, I'll come to you. He went and he taught this person 400 times a lesson. Now, afterwards, he saw that the student did not grasp the material. And he said, what's going on? Usually 400 times you get it. And the student responded, he says, once they came and they said that they need you for a certain mitzvah matter, they needed you for something after the lessons, I couldn't concentrate. And I was just always nervous you're going to leave, and I couldn't concentrate. So I knew you might be leaving at any moment in time. So all that 400 times just went, in one ear, out the other. So what would most people do in that situation? Be like, okay, 400 times, you can't expect me to do it, anymore. What can you really expect anything more after 400? Can you really expect anything more after 20? And he went to this rabbi, and he taught him an additional 400 times, meaning for a total of 800 times. Says that situation that I have to go to, that can wait, let me do this. And he went and he taught him another 400 times. After this, a baskol, a divine voice, emerged from heaven, and they gave this rabbi, because of this amazing deed that he did, he gave him two options. Option number one, you're going to have 400 years added to your life. You're going to live an exceptionally long life. Option number two, you and your entire generation will merit Olam Haba, to go to Olam Haba. Which one do you decide? And Rav Preida said, I decide that me and my entire generation should go to Olam Haba. And the Gemara finishes off that they ended up giving him both. His entire generation went to Olam Haba, and he merited to live an exceptionally long life. Now, if we stop to analyze this for just a moment, we look at this story. You had here a rabbi, and this is a rabbi that's mentioned in the Gemara. This is not a rabbi that didn't have other things to do and be like, let's just, nothing else going on. If he's mentioned in the Gemara, there is this is a rabbi we can't even begin to imagine how high of a level this rabbi is. Now, you're talking about a high level rabbi that's dealing with somebody who is having a very, very difficult time to learn. Now, the rabbi could have said, okay, listen, I'm sure he had a shul, a congregation, students, that he could have said, okay, you go learn with him, train him, and speak to him. Yet this rabbi did not. This rabbi went by himself, and he spent 400 times teaching someone something. And even if it's just a one sentence, can you imagine how it's not even about the patience. It's about that, that's, I don't even know the right word, where you have the ability to sit and repeat something so many times to somebody else, even if it's one sentence, is almost like unheard. It's like inhumane. It's such a high level of achievement that a person has to be able to reach to. And this is a rabbi that had the abilities to give it to somebody else, but yet he chose to do it himself. And not only that, he didn't get upset. You realize, it would be like, are you kidding me? I spent so much time teaching you, and you're not listening. There's so many things I could have to be like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. He didn't say a single thing. You're talking about patience. I don't know if there's anything else that's a higher level of patience than this. 400 times, the guy didn't understand it. Start from scratch. Let's do it again. Let's make sure that you get it. Thank you, endurance. That's a good word. The endurance that this rabbi would have to have, the self-restraint also on not getting upset and just keep on going and continuing. Imagine we have not, like a percent a percent of that power. A percent of that power. Now you should know that this principle is not only in, when you're judging someone or when you're teaching someone, even if, let's say, let me give you from this example. Let's say someone like me, right? So we're giving a class. If I don't prepare the information, if I don't spend a lot of time preparing the information, it's, people are not going to really understand it. It's going to be a very superficial class. It's going to be like you're not going to grasp it, and you might think it's your fault, but really it would be my fault. When anybody goes and wants to know a certain topic, you really have to delve into that topic. Doing a superficial learning is nice, but you don't get to the crux of that topic. You don't understand it. If you want to, and I take this, this is something that I take very, very seriously, that if I try, or am I teaching a topic, I, go in depth in that topic. And just for example, I believe this is the 5th class on Pirkei Avos. We didn't even complete the first Mishnah of that, because there's so much to learn. And if you just go through it just superficially, and many of you have, how much of that information was retained? How much of that information did you understand? Or even better yet, how much of that information did you internalize and change your life for the better? So the more that a teacher is going to prepare, the more that a teacher goes and learns it and repeats it and chazers it, the more that they go over it, the more that they understand it, the easier that you're going to be able to go and understand it, the easier that you're going to be able to go and receive it. When we have to be deliberate in judgment, that's also when we teach. That is also when we study. Even from your perspective, so you're listening to this class now, how much of that information did you retain? Did you retain anything? What was now you could go and teach things in a superficial way. You could also listen to things in a superficial way. And there are many times where we can, and I've said this before, where you could hear a class and you could come to a certain conclusion, then you hear it again, you'd be like, wait a minute, I had no idea this is what this speaker was speaking about completely else. I took a completely different lesson out of it. And the more that you listen, the more that you're able to actually take away, and you're able to sort of, grasp. And I don't want to name certain speakers, but there's a certain speaker, and it's a good thing, not a bad thing. There's a certain speaker that if you listen to his classes, it appears that he's a very popular speaker. It appears like he's maybe saying a bunch of little tidbits, maybe a nice little story here, nice little story there. But if you really focus on the classes, you realize that everything is connected to everything else, and it's actually really deep. And I think that's a genius. Excuse me. That's a genius level where you're able to go and present information that someone on a superficial level can be like, this is nice, and then someone who's really focusing would be able to see how it all ties in together. So when you're learning, when you're studying, you also have to be deliberate in what you do. And part of it is patience. People don't have patience. And this is why, a lot of things that we do is through series. And people don't have, once we get it to number 20, number 25, be like, oh, we're still on this series. Come on, let's do something else. Really, those people, it's all about the entertainment factor. It's not about the learning. It's not about, they want to be entertained and they're bored and they want to go, you got to get the newest lease. Well, what else is there? But in reality, if you really want to learn something, you have to delve into it to the most deepest level. The Torah, the Mishnah, actually one of the Mishnahs in Pirkei Avos, it says, it's in the last chapter of Pirkei Avos, tells us the 48 things to acquire Torah. And one of the things to acquire Torah is patience. Because you have many people that just go through everything. They went through schooling, they went through the yeshivas, and yet they come out knowing almost nothing. Why? A lot of they have no patience. They want to go to the next thing. They want to go to the next thing. And sometimes it's good, and sometimes you do need to move on to the next thing. But if you're going out of school, of learning, of a seder, you're sitting and you're listening to class, and you don't actualize or remember anything or realize, that's because you did things in a very superficial level. If you would have the patience to really focus on something, then you will know something. And I have to tell you, whenever I give a class on a certain topic, and especially when it's a series, I learned that more than I knew that before because I'm preparing for the classes. So I'm learning all sources. If I didn't have patience, I would have been able to hit out one series after another series after another series and just keep on going. But I feel, well, maybe it's not patience. Maybe I just don't feel like the readiness to do it is because I need to learn more about it. I need to focus more about it. I need to open another safer on it. I don't understand it. And you need to keep on tackling it. And that's the only way that you're going to be successful in something. You have to have that patience. You have to have that ability to go, okay, it's one step at a time, and now let me keep on going in the same thing that I'm looking at, the same topic, and the same thing, let me keep on going into it. The Gemara in Eruvin, page 54b, tells us on how Moshe taught Torah to entire Klal Yisrael. So we know that Moshe Rabbeinu learned the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from God, and then Moshe had his tent. Aaron HaKohen, his brother, entered the tent, and Moshe taught Aaron the entire Torah, or the Torah. And then what happened is Aaron moved to the side, and then then Elazar and Isamar, the sons of Aaron, they came in the tent, and now Moshe repeated and retaught the Torah to Elazar and Isamar, while Aaron was still there. Then Elazar and Isamar moved to the side. It was really Elazar on the right and Isamar on the left. And then the Zakanim, the elders, entered. And Moshe taught them their portion. So if we stop the scenario at this point in time, that means that Aaron learned 4 times, his sons 3 times, the Zakanim twice, and then all the people once. Meaning, so it started off with Aaron. Then Aaron moved on the side. His sons came in. After his sons moved on the side, and then the Zakanim came in. After the Zakanim came in, then all the people came in. And so you have over here that Aaron learned it 4 times. His sons learned it 3 times. The Zakanim learned it twice. The people learned it once. Then what happened? Moshe left, and then Aaron taught. He heard it already 4 times. He taught it to everybody who was staying. Then Aaron left, and his sons taught it, because now they heard it 4 times to everybody else, and then they left. And then the Zakanim went and they taught it, and to the people. And now everybody learned the entire Torah 4 times. So from this, the Gemara learns out that when you want to learn something, you have to learn it minimum 4 times. 4 times when you have to learn a subject. And, so for speakers, it's easy because they need to learn it at least 4 times in order to be ready to say something. But what happens for people that are non-speakers, people that do not have to provide this information over, right? Let's say you're sitting to a certain class. Let's say you're looking at some sort of self-improvement. You're listening to a Midos class or whatever it is that you're listening to, and you want to grow in it. If you want it to really resonate within you, you have to review that information 4 times. Maybe you don't have to listen to that class 4 times, but you have to take some notes and review those notes 4 times. Review that information 4 times. You're learning a sefer. You want to internalize it. Review it 4 times if you want to be able to internalize it, at least 4 times. Now, there's a saying that patience is a virtue. I don't know if that patience is that literally means that it's a good quality to have patience, to be able to tolerate something that takes a really long time to acquire, to do. I don't know if patience is a virtue or patience is a necessity. If we want to be successful in life, you have to have patience. Whether it's business and investments, stock markets, you have to be patient to that. Yeah, raising children, you have to be very patient. Relationships, patience is of utmost importance. So we see over here that patience has such a strong outcome of our personal life. The flip side of where we can jump to conclusions and not be deliberate in judgment. I hope you guys could all, understand the connection of what being deliberate in judgment and judging people and the patience, right? So if we did, and this is something we spoke about last week, that of course it's best not to judge anybody. But if you are going to judge somebody for whatever reason, do it slowly, right? Do it in a slow manner, in a very, very patient manner. Be deliberate in what you're doing because your outcomes are going to be very, very different. Now, what can cause someone to be not deliberate in judgment or patience in that matter is panic. When we start panicking, when we start getting anxiety, we have to do things quickly. We have to feel like we're nervous. We have to do something quickly. Many times, not all the times, many times, once we do something quickly, it doesn't end in the most successful way. It doesn't always fail, but it doesn't always produce the most successful outcome. So we have this kind of a balance that we have to have. Sometimes we have to go fast because sometimes we're procrastinating, and that's not the right thing to do. Sometimes we have to slow down because we're panicking, we have anxiety, we just want to jump towards it. We have to find that right balance. That healthy balance, and everything in life is all about the balance. We have to figure out what the balance is, right? There's a balance of having the time. There's a balance of doing what you need to do. There is a balance of eating the right amount. There's a balance of exercising the right amount. There's a balance of sleeping the right amount. Everything in life is all about, the balance. So the sweet spot, let's just call it, is something that we have to really think about, like what is the right amount that we have to, and if you think about your own personal life, you'll realize that in certain scenarios or certain situations, or maybe I could say certain topics, whether it's children, one topic, relationships, another topic, you may have more patience in one topic and not in another topic, another area in your life. A topic I'm just using as an area in your life. This is something that you have to realize that this is something that I need to work on. Because once we realize, the reason why I'm presenting it this way is that we don't always realize we have a problem. But once we see where we excel in one area, and wait a minute, I don't excel in this area the same way over here, so maybe I need to focus something over here. And just to give you an example on a different wavelength, let's say in emunah. So some people have a very, very high level of emunah when it comes to dating. They don't have to let my spouse knock on my door whenever they're ready to get married. I don't have to chase anybody. But when it comes to business, they're hustling and bustling, and they're knocking on doors, and they're making phone calls, and they're sending emails, and they don't stop nonstop. So when you think about it, well, wait a minute, where's your emunah hishtadlus? Where's your emunah and effort? Situation. Like, where's the balance? In one area, you're very strong in it. In the other area, you're very weak in it. So what's the right one? So if we're a little bit honest with ourselves, we realize, why in emunah and hishtadlus, in let's say money, I push harder, is because the emunah and hishtadlus that I have in dating is not really emunah and hishtadlus. It's laziness, and I'm not interested in that. Here, I'm interested in it. So meaning that sometimes we present ourselves with information and we say, yeah, I have a high level of emunah over here. Meaning it has nothing to do with that. One is laziness, one is not. Because we have two different wavelengths. So with patience also, sometimes we feel like we have patience in a certain scenario, but really it's not patience. If you don't get anxious, if you don't get you're not working on yourself if it comes simply and easy to you. And in another area, if it becomes difficult for you and you're also not working in it, so you're on the same you're on the same wavelength in both areas. You're just not whatever comes naturally to you. And sometimes you'll have patience with a certain child, and then other times you won't have patience with your spouse or whatever, and you could start giving up all the excuses. You'll be like, wait, they should know better. And they should, all excuses, that's nice and dandy, but you know what? If you don't have that same wavelength of patience with everybody, that means that this is something that you have to work on. This is something that you have to have self-awareness, and don't start giving excuses into any other, situation where you're saying it's okay. The root, a big root of impatience, the opposite obviously of patience, is that we tend to feel like we own our fates. We're the master of our fates. So why should I be, impatient? So there was a story with the briskarov that, in fact, it's funny because this story here, there's a lot of different variations to the story. But when I read it recently, it was by the briskarov, where he was officiating a wedding, and it was an outdoor wedding. The chuppah was outdoor, and the chassan was going to put the ring on the kala, on the bride. The groom was going to put the ring on the bride, and it slipped. And oh my gosh, if it's a Sephardi wedding, forget about it. There are people throwing salt over there. Who knows? This is not a good luck. It's not working out well. And they had to go find the ring, and it took them a really long time to find the ring. It was in grass, and just how it is, right? When you drop something that you want to find, somehow it just keeps on going. It's like the Energizer Bunny, right? It's just rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling until finally it was about 20 minutes later, and everyone's frantic, and they finally find it. And the briskarov looks around, and I see that people are uneasy, is that a sign? Talking about cold feet, right? This is going to come to cold feet to an extreme. And the briskarov, said, and he made a short speech, and he said, that there's a time when a person's supposed to get married. We could call the time for the chuppah to be 7 sharp, and we could be ready for everything, and everything is meticulous, and the waiters are ready, and the catering is ready, and the seating is ready, everybody's sitting but if HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes and says, no, they don't get married till 7:20, guess what? They're not going to get married till 7:20. So sometimes our impatience is because we feel like, no, we have to do it now because that's what I said. Because I made the schedule and it has to be now and I have to complete this by a certain period of time. And if we realize that we're not in control, we have to do our efforts. Once we do our efforts, that's it. We have to take a step back. There's no more that we can do. There's no more that we should do sometimes. So when we want to work on our patience, it's very interconnected to emunah, into realizing that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if you're in a certain situation, then, try to be the most patient that you can in that situation. And I can tell you, it's not easy. There are certain situations that I am put in quite frequently that I have to really work on myself. And, I can't say I'm successful, all the time. Sometimes, truth is, I don't know. Maybe I should really look into see what my success rate is. But there are things that are very difficult to be successful. There are conversations that I have with people that, there are conversations that I have with people that I know after I have to wind down. Like I can't. If somebody, there's certain people, it's not anybody that's listening. The people that they usually don't listen to, this class. So don't think that it's you because it's really not. But there's some people that I literally have to take, I can't speak to anybody for 45 minutes, an hour after that. I need to just wind down. It is such such an aggravating thing, and you can't get upset, and you have to be relaxed, and you have to this is not, so it's something that everybody has to work on. It's something that no matter where you're dealing with, you have to work on. And not always will you be successful. And sometimes you will fail. And sometimes you won't be as successful other times. That doesn't mean that you should stop it. But you should realize that if you're put in a certain situation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put you in this situation. Even if you orchestrated it, and even if you did it, but if you are here in this situation, so getting upset, getting impatient, jumping to conclusions, not able to come to sort of a relaxed conclusion, can very, very often come to a very, very incorrect conclusion. The Ma'am Laws says on this that if a judge goes and renders judgment too quickly, there are considered 3 things: wicked, arrogant, and a fool. This is based off a different Mishnah in Perkei Avos in the 4th parak in the 7th Mishnah. V'hagas libay b'hayra, shaita rasha v'gas ruach. Somebody who is frivolous, who hands down ruling very, very quickly, is considered fool, wicked, and arrogant. Why? Let's go through them. Why a fool? A fool, because the Mamla says, because he overestimates his own knowledge. He thinks he knows it all. Who thinks that they know it all? Children and arrogant people. They think they know everything, right? You tell a child you want to speak to them about something, as soon as they know the ABCs, they're like, I'm pretty sure I know everything. You can't teach me anything. ABCs and addition, forget about it. I know everything. And then you have arrogant people, who think they know everything. And I've said this before because it's such it surprises me every time I think of the story, and I say it always surprises me. Where I was giving a class and I was trying to convince this particular person to go to yeshiva, and he was like, no, I did it already. I did the yeshiva. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I figured you went for 12 years. How long? A year. And I'm like, a year? I didn't say anything initially. I'm like, a year you can't really get so much. But it was within a few moments where he asked me the most simplest question, what to make a blessing on a very simple thing. And I was like, so you don't know anything. If you went through a year and you asked me this question, you obviously don't know anything. And he started smiling and says, yeah, you're right. But initially, when he said that he knows everything, he believed in himself. He didn't come to the conclusion and saying, no, maybe I need to do more. How many of us, we really think we know everything on a certain topic, in a certain scenario, and we're very confident in that until we're very, very obviously told that, wait a minute, we're not that much of a specialist that we thought that we are. And all of a sudden we're like, oh wait, maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to, learn more, about it. There are times where I hear people speak, either they speak to me or they speak to other people about a certain subject that maybe I feel like I've learned and delved into. And when I hear them and they are so far off point that, it's a fault in me where I'm like, I can't even bother correct. It's like there's like nothing to discuss over here. It's really a lack of a patience, because really I should sit over there and for 400 times I should repeat it again, but they're so far off the ball and they're so confident in what they're saying. They're like, okay, I can't even begin. I don't even know where to begin. So, with that being said, the arrogance, being called, you're considered a fool. You're considered a fool because you think that you know everything. And really, the person that thinks that they know anything and they really don't know anything, that's really a foolish person. We have to be able to say, I don't know. I have to check. I need to ask. These are very, very important qualifications that every human being needs to have. I remember once having a conversation with somebody. You're talking about maybe 15, 16 years ago. I don't remember all the details of the conversation, but I remember having the conversation. My wife was with me, and we were speaking. It was my wife, I think there was two other couples over there, and there was one guy talking. I remember where it was now. That's not important. There was one guy talking, and he was just like saying information. And like one of the things, I tried to correct him because like there was something that I knew of, and I'm like, no, you meant something else. And he's like, no, it's this. He was so confident in what he was saying. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, wow, I'm not even bothering. Like, it was so wrong. Like, it was comical. It was sort of, it was kind of like funny on how, and he thought that he was looking intelligent because he had, the information that he was presenting, but he looked, unfortunately, foolish. Now again, it wasn't a Torah matter, so it wasn't like something that was of utmost important. It was just a stomach conversation, but it was something that, the more that you think you know about something, and the more, the less that you present yourself as if you know something, that's when you look the most foolish. So that's why the Mam Law says, you're considered a fool. You're considered a fool if you overestimate your own knowledge. The next thing the Mam Law says is you're considered wicked. Why are you considered wicked? And the Rabbeinu Yonah brings this down also in this Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, that if somebody rushes to come to a conclusion, they come to a wrong conclusion, that's negligence. Even if they sincerely wanted to come to the right conclusion. But this type of mistake, that you rushed it, that you didn't take the patience to look into it, that's not accidental. That's close to intentional, says Rabbeinu Yonah. And that's why we have to be very, very quickly. We have to constantly remind ourselves not to come to quick decisions, because they could be inaccurate, and if they're inaccurate, that's negligence on our part. And that's why the Mam Law says the second thing is wicked. The third thing is arrogance. Somebody that considers themselves so great they don't need to review is part of arrogance. Everybody needs to review. Everybody needs to review, no matter how much you've learned and how much you understand a topic, you have to review it. If you don't review it, you lose it. And I'll tell you a step further. If somebody would ask, let's say you're learning some sort of class on self-improvement, and let's say you have 3 hours a week that you're driving, and you're able to listen to class. So the question that maybe would be arise, should I listen to the same class 3 times, or should I listen to 3 different classes? So of course it depends on a few topics, depends on the person, it depends on a few situations and the person. But many times, if you learn 3 topics superficially, and then 1 topic just like really well, that you memorize it, you know what you need to do, the chances are that you're going to become a better person and you're going to implement those changes is if you review that same class 3 times, or that same topic 3 times. So when someone gets to the point where they feel they don't need to review, that results in arrogance. That results in a lack of knowledge, a lack of internalization of the knowledge that you learned, and then you really gain like a percentage. So whenever you learn or read or listen or participate in any sort of activity or class, the more that you repeat it, review it, the more that you know it, the more that you have a takeaway from it. Now, it's very, very important that whenever you're listening to that class, whenever you're learning Torah, whenever you're doing anything, it's so, so important that you have a takeaway. There's something that you should be doing different in your life. Even if it only lasts a day, right? If by next week you might have forgotten this class completely, but even if it only lasts a day, that you are patient for 1 day, already you gain something. Of course, we should all strive to be able to change our personality for the best in all areas, but at least some sort of takeaway. The more that you listen, the more that you concentrate, the more that you focus, the more that you review, the more takeaway that you're going to have. And I'll give you an example. For everybody that was listening until this point, if you were to pause and stop the class and you were to think about how many takeaways you can go out. So it would be very simple for anybody who was listening with half a ear to know patience, to know not to jump in, not to jump into judgment. But how many people will go and delve it into a step further? Which will be another lesson that you can learn, is that when you see someone, do something, there could be one small piece of information that's missing, and you could come to a completely different conclusion. Meaning that when we judge other people, we don't know all the aspects. So how many people are going to remember that aspect and are going to implement that? How many people are going to think about reviewing the 4 times? Like, we could go on and on. There's so many little different aspects that, let's say you try to teach someone something or train someone something and they didn't get it. And whether it's like kiruv or whatever it is, like it's motivational, and they didn't get it, and you're like, okay, let me give up. Like, and how many times you don't know that it festers, that it grows inside of you? Like, there's so many aspects to a very, very simple topic, that nuances that we spoke about, that you heard of, but you didn't internalize it. So the more that you review, the more that you go over it, the more that you're going to be able to internalize it and change. Where does the time go? Okay, we have to. No, it's getting late. Let me see over here. No, we have to finish this topic. I can't stretch it out for another one. Give me a few more minutes. Let's at least finish this topic over here. So the Chida writes that he writes of a certain rabbi who knew the entire Shulchan Aruch by heart, right? Like some rabbi, like if the Chida brings down you're talking about someone on a high level. And Rav Yaakov Hillel quotes the Chida, who brings down this rabbi, and he said that this rabbi, even though he memorized everything, he would not give a verdict unless he reviews and prior research into his, looking at things inside. Like, even if we know something, and even we're aware of something, it always is beneficial to review it. Let me just, go back and let me look inside. Let me make sure that I'm giving the right answer. Now, of course, to each their own, but it just shows you the level of being deliberate when presenting information to somebody else. Now, there's another aspect of judgment, and that is being smart with the judgment. Chacham Avadia Yosef brings down 3 stories on this, 3 scenarios. Well, the first one is with 2 people came to Rav Yaakov of Lisa, and one of them found a gold coin, and the other one claimed that it was his. So Rav Yaakov sensed that the second one was lying. So he came with an idea to prove the truth. Now, how can he has to come to some sort of proof. He can't just, he had a sense. He was looking and he was listening to both cases. He was concentrating and being deliberate in both aspects. And he realized that this guy he feels is very wrong, but he has to bring a proof to it. How is he going to bring a proof to it? So he tells both of them to wait outside, and he says he needs to examine the coin. Now, he realized that one of them, at least the fake, is going to be listening in to what the rabbi is, if he's going to be saying anything. And the rabbi realized that that's what's going to happen. So he went near the door, and he was examining the coin, and he was talking to himself. It was talking to himself, but loud enough that other people could be able to hear. And he says, okay, there appears to be a small hole that's engraved in the first letter of the coin. And then he starts quoting the Gemara in Gittin that says that this is a definitive sign for a coin. And okay, so you know what? Let me go on. Let me ask them if they know where the sign is. Okay, so he said this out loud, and he calls both of them back in. And he says, so one person found it, the second person claimed that it was his, and the second person is who Rabbi Yaakov, sensed that it was wrong. So Rabbi Yaakov goes and says, you said that it's your coin, correct? And he's like, yes. He says, is there any signs that maybe you can tell me that will prove that this coin is really yours? And he says, as a matter of fact, there is. There is a small hole on the top of the first letter in this coin. And Rav Yaakov showed him the coin, and there was no hole. He just made it up to see if he would fall for it. There was no hole, and he says, "This is really not your coin. This is the coin of the person that found it." Now, how did he get to this conclusion? Now, sometimes we have to come and we have to see the truth of the matter, like where the correct judgment is. But then we have to take it a step further and be able to present that information in the correct way. Now, if the rabbi would have said, "I don't feel like it's yours. I feel like it's the other person," that's not a correct judgment. You have to, bring proof to it. So Rabbi Yaakov put it in a certain scenario where it came out that, he made him feel like he was right, even though he was completely wrong, and that's the way that he proved him that he was wrong. take the same scenario a step further of a different story, where there was an employee of a wine merchant that saved a small portion of his wages, and over the years, and he used to hide it in a certain area in the wine cellar. And there's been, after many, many years, he amassed a large sum of 200 gold coins. One Friday, he went and he added money to his hidden pouch, in the employer's wine cellar. And after Shabbos, he went to look at it and he realized it was gone. He searched the entire cellar and he couldn't find anything. So he goes over to Rav Shlomo Kluger. And he said, I worked so many years. I've saved so much money. All my savings, it's all right here. And now it's gone. He says, nobody knows. Nobody but the owner knows that I had, the key to the cellar, that I kept the stuff over there. And only him and I have the key. Only him and I know that. The guy says, I can't prove it, but I feel like he's the one who took it. So the Rav says, okay, call him in. He calls over this owner and he says, the Rav asked him point blank, do you know where the money is? He says, the money? I don't know. He completely denied the fact. So the rabbi said to him, to be honest, I didn't really suspect you. Like, why would you, such an upright citizen, steal some money from your workers? It didn't make any sense. But then I came to the conclusion that if it wasn't you, so there must have been that a non-Jew broke into your wine cellar, and he must have stolen it. But the problem is that if a non-Jew touches wine, it becomes yayin esach, and you can't sell the wine. You can't do anything with the wine. So if that's the case, I have to make a proclamation and say that all your wine is forbidden because there must have been a non-Jew in there that touched the wine, and then the wine is not usable anymore. So this owner said, he goes and he says, no. He says, it wasn't non-Jew, it was really me. And the rabbi's like, of course you're going to say that. You want to save your wine, but I don't believe you. Come on, you're not going to do such a thing. And he's like, yeah, I can prove it. And the guy runs home, brings the exact sack, and it says, you see, here it is. I really took it. It's really, my wine is really okay. Meaning that once he saw how much money he's going to lose, he's like, what, this is not worth it anymore. Let me confess and let me come clean. So we see over here how the rabbi came to the conclusion in a smart way. He knew the outcome, and he had to come to the right to present the information the right way, so the right conclusion comes out. One final story is where there was a merchant that came before Rabbi Eliyahu Chaim Mizal, and he was a chief rabbi of Lutz in Poland. And there was this person that he was on a business trip in Poland, in Lutz, and he after he paid his bill in his hotel, he went to the train to get a ticket. When he got to the train, he realized that he did not have his wallet. So he was trying to think about when was the last time he used his wallet, and he realized it was when he paid his bill for the hotel. So he ran back to the hotel and he says, I think I left my wallet over here. And the hotel keeper was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't see any wallet. And the guy felt like the what money is there. So he went over to Rabbi Mezal and he says, this is the situation. I'm pretty sure this hotel is lying and he took my money. So the rabbi called this hotel owner to come into his office, and he started discussing the case, and this owner said, no, absolutely, I would never take it. The rabbi said, yeah, you're right. I believe you. And then as they're talking, this hotel owner was a very talkative man. He kept on going on, and he took out a snuff box and he started, sniffing snuff. And the rabbi says, do you mind if I take some snuff? And the guy says, yeah. And he's taking, the rabbi's taking some snuff out. And then the guys keep on talking and talking. Meanwhile, the rabbi calls over his assistant. He quickly whispers it, and he says, take this snuff box, go to the wife of this person and say, this is your husband said that I should return the wallet. You should return the wallet of this person, and this is the proof. Here's a snuff box. So this man, the assistant of the rabbi, he left, and meanwhile the guy didn't realize anything. The guys keep on talking, and this assistant goes to the hotel. He speaks to the wife. The wife sees the snuff box. She says, it must be this, right? Gives him the wallet. He comes back, and the assistant presents the information, the wallet with the snuff box to the rabbi. And when the hotel person saw it, he started puzzling things together, and all of a sudden he came clean. So many times we come to certain conclusions. We have to realize how we're gonna get that outcome to the next level, meaning that we have to be deliberate in judgment. We have to know, how to judge, and we have to know, how to come to certain conclusions, and but to take it to the next level, we have to know how to get that right information out there. Whether it is, let's say you come to a certain conclusion, you want to you want to tell someone something. You have to know how to say it. You have to know how to present the information. You can't just tell somebody, whatever it is that you saw or you heard that you want to get. There's so many nuances that every time that we look at something, we learn something, we can come to so many different conclusions. Now, you could take any subject, and this is what I'm going to leave you off with. There's a little bit more to speak about. We'll leave you off with this. There's so many different things that we have learned, we have gone through, we have spoken about, you have learned. You take any topic, take patience for an example, meditate on that, different ideas on that, and you'll see on how many things you could come out. So if we are a little bit slower, a little bit more patient, a little bit more deliberate in our life, we'll be able to uncover so many things. So many things we'll be able to uncover. Okay, let's open up to some questions and then we'll call it night. Okay. Oh, not too many questions. Okay. Oh, here we go. I hardly have any patience during a shir anymore, but Zoom shirs catch my attention because I know it's live. So thank you so much for doing these classes on Zoom. Oh, Baruch Hashem, I'm happy to hear that, and thank you for joining us. Just while we're speaking about it, if anybody does want to join us, anybody's listening to this after the fact, you can reach out to me to join the WhatsApp group for the weekly Thursday night shir. You can email me at rabbizitron@torahanytime.com. Okay, next question. It seems like one or two more questions left. Okay. This might be. Okay, let me just read it out loud because it was a private message. Okay, I spoke to you before. My brother, he's kind of lost. His friend went to yeshiva, came back, and completely became a disbeliever. Went to yeshiva and came back a disbeliever. He started influencing my brother. My brother went to yeshiva for elementary. He was a believer throughout high school, but I feel like the wrong people have been putting wrong ideas in his mind. Unfortunately, more common than we would like to be. I personally have been trying to convince my brother with all the resources I have, but I don't think what I am saying is effective enough. Can my brother reach out to you? Absolutely. He recently said he would be open to having a conversation if you would be willing to speak to him. Absolutely. I don't know. I think you do have my number. If not, I'll post my number over here. You could. The best is to set up a through text message, so we could set up a time to sit and talk. That's my number. You could you text me. We'll set up a time. Okay, last two more questions. Okay, another group of people forgot to mention that everything is mothers. Oh, that's true. They have a sixth sense, but that's sometimes really true. It's like I don't know. That's something that I mess. Yeah, it's like a mama bear and a mama or a mama bear. Okay, there's one thing that came up. I'm not familiar with this. I don't understand the question. What do you do if you miss someone? I'm not sure what that is. So you could definitely reach out to me afterwards, and we could discuss it more once I have more clarification on that question. Until next time, thank you all for joining, and may you have an amazing, most successful week.